Welcome, Internet, to the PixelPlay Podcast, your weekly gaming podcast where we get together to talk about all things video games. I am one of your co-hosts, Kaylan, aka Catastrophe, joined as always by my co-host Adam at CS Radical and Chris at Jin and Chris. This week's episode, we're going to be talking about the PlayStation 5 Pro rumors, what we're seeing, do we think we need one, and what we'd like to see in order for us to pull the trigger and buy one ourselves. If you like that, we post every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we do a little bit of side bonus content for our YouTube subscribers every Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you want to subscribe, go to youtube.com/PixelPlay Podcast, and you can subscribe there, or you could just get the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. With that being said, let's jump into it, gentlemen. It's been a while. What have you guys been up to?
For you, it's been a while. I don't know what you've been talking about.
I mean, it's been a while for me to see you guys. There's a lot's happened. I was just curious, what's new with you?
Well, I can't lie. I have been I think I'm in my first gaming rut, where I haven't really been gaming. I have, but it's been extremely casual games that I can pick up for an hour in bed. And it's not a lack of time. I have a lot of time in the evenings. There's nothing going on. I just, for some reason, I keep looking, being like, whoa, March is well over half over now, and I've only beaten a couple games, and even that's kind of pushing if I really did beat them. But the only thing I've actually kind of picked up and played a little bit, this super casual game is on Game Pass. It's called A Little to the Left. It is an organizational game. It's just you see a bunch of stuff on a table, and it's organize them from biggest to smallest or whatever one of those are.
I've seen this game.
It's a bit WarioWare
Yeah, it seems very WarioWare because clearly this person owns a cat, and every so often you're about to finally get the knife and fork and plate and placemat already, and this cat's fucking paw just comes in and fucking bam, and it's like, fuck me, and you got to do it again. It's supposed to be a casual game. I'm playing this casual game, and clearly I'm throwing my Steam Deck across the room. But yeah, it's just because right when you're about to get it, and then because I'm not playing mouse and keyboard or something, I'm using a controller, so it's moving stuff with the joystick, so it takes that extra moment, and that's when that fucking cat comes in. But it's super simple. I'm just kind of doing it casually because it's been that, and then my Story of Seasons Picross game where I do a couple of the Picross puzzles while playing Spotify. It was pretty cool. I figured out how to get Spotify installed on my Steam Deck, and I can actually launch that, play music or a podcast, and then launch into another game with the music turned all the way down. It's pretty cool, especially with headphones in bed or something like that. Very, very, very chill. I love that. But again, I've been playing a puzzle game or a fuck you cat game. And that's it. I have Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2, Rebirth or whatever it's called, and I'm still at the same spot a week and a half ago. I'm the 8-hour mark. I was loving it. I'm in chapter 4. I'm oh, I'm starting to feel it. Haven't played since. And it's not that game specific. It is just I go to turn on I'm in a rut. I'm in a gaming rut. And my backlog hates it.
Why are you not spreading democracy? That's some traitors. That's some traitors' thoughts right there.
I have been playing, because I do play games Wednesdays and Thursdays with friends. Wednesdays with a fan of the show, friend Kevin. Usually play with him.
Shout out to Kevin.
Shout out to Kevin. Actually, we did play a really cool game called We Were Here. If anybody's looking for a co-op game, you have to play a co-op. 2 people are trapped in a castle, and you each have a walkie-talkie, and it's you're both in separate rooms, and you need item I don't know, you need clues off a mural in one room to solve the puzzle in the other room, and the one person has lava coming up through the floor, and the other person's got to help through the walkie-talkie, help the other person. It's a very fun game. It can be a little stressful because you're literally you can't both talk at the same time. It's a walkie-talkie. So, and that's the only thing. Besides flipping switches or moving puzzle things around, it's just this walkie-talkie.
Now, Chris, I have a question for you. When you play that game, do you guys say over?
We had to. And it's because we kept talking over each other. I would go to start talking, and then when I would let go of the walkie-talkie, all of a sudden Kevin would kick on, and he was halfway into a sentence, so clearly he heard no words I said because he's been talking the whole time, and now I'm only getting the end of it, and then I would burn in lava. So we literally had to we have to say over so we know when the other person can speak. We just finished the second game in the series, and I noticed they added a red light to the walkie-talkie. The very first one we played, there was no red light. You could not tell when someone else is talking. Now I have noticed there's a red light where it's kind of like, oh, someone's talking through the walkie-talkie, but it's not perfect. It's definitely not perfect because I've seen it where there's no red light and I start talking and then I let go and he's already halfway through talking as well. So it's still pretty tough, but I'm assuming that's what real walkie-talkies would be like. And yeah, that's been a lot of fun. And then some Helldivers, of course, with friends on usually Thursdays. So I've still been doing my co-op games and like playing with friends. No rut there. This is just when I have free time. I'm like, I'm going to go sit on the couch upstairs and absorb sunlight because I haven't done that all winter. Like, I don't know. It's just, it's a weird time. It's a weird time.
Fair enough. Adam, what about you? What's been keeping you busy?
96 hours of Final Fantasy VII Remake, or Rebirth, I should say. And now
so you're in a rut too. You're in a rut. No, I'm kidding.
No, I still finished one more game after that.
Son of a bitch. Can I just give you my backlog?
No.
If it's
I'm
any
not helping
consolation,
you.
you're doing better than me.
You understand, Chris, that when you get rehab for things, someone doesn't do the work for you.
Please, just do my gambling for me. It's fine.
So it's done. I'm going to try not to say anything about it because I don't want to spoil Chris. I have a lot to say about that game, though, and I'm trying to figure how to let it go. I don't know if I want to do like a solo spoiler cast. I'm trying to think, like, look, if anybody's watching this show, there's the link tree, linktr.ee/pixelplaypodcast. Join the friggin' Discord and tell me if you got to get some shit off your chest with that game too, because I need to say something about this game, and I can't because no one else has finished it, so I can't talk about it.
I mean, you can talk to me about it. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, but it's no fun. You're just gonna go, wait, so Tony the Tiger did this?
Well, I mean, maybe we could do it as a side quest this week. Check out on Friday if we end up doing that. Or go into Discord. Maybe we'll start a little channel in our Discord where it'll just be Adam ranting about Final Fantasy.
Yeah,
it'll just be me sitting in a voice channel alone screaming for 6 hours.
Yeah,
I mean, like, I'll say this much because I'll give some thoughts about it, honestly. It's not as good as the remake, although I think a lot to do with that is the fact that, I mean, to be completely honest, even from what I remember from the original game, once you get out of Midgar, it's not as interesting to me. So I think my bias comes in that as soon as the remake finished and Rebirth came in, the story is now taking all the fun stuff and it's done. Like, now it's more into territory where it starts to, not, I wouldn't say drag, but there's a lot of filler. And it's not to say like it's all bad. Like the open world.
Wait. You're telling me the game where you're a frog jumping over a post or doing a parade is filler?
That's a mini game. It's fun. See, if you play Yakuza games, you'd understand how good that stuff is.
Yakuza game is just filler wrapped around a minor story.
Take that back, sir.
Well,
like, the open world itself, I think, is my biggest complaint. It's the same thing with, like, you know, every other game, like Horizon and such. There's too many things to do, and it's the same things. The fact that a Final Fantasy game has towers like it's a fucking Ubisoft open world is kind of insulting, to be honest. The first time I kind of giggled, and after, like, the fourth world map where it's the same thing over and over again, I'm like, guys, I'm gonna finish this. But this is ridiculous. Why are we doing it like this? Like, there's got to be a better way. And it keeps going back to that conversation that I have every time I play an open world game. It's like, fucking make it smaller. Stop. We don't need to do the same 5 quests 17 times. Stop. It's not fun. I don't know why anybody thinks this is fun. Who focus group tested this? AKA, no one focus group tested this. They just go, well, we need to pad that clock, so we might as well just add it in there. And then lastly, some of the writing is not that great. I won't say where, but some of the writing's not that great. It's definitely not as good as the remake.
No, that doesn't sound right.
Shut up. You don't have any horse in this race.
How dare you speak to the JRPG king like that?
Well,
how dare you insult the JRPG king like that?
Did you still like it more than 16? I think that will determine if
that's not a bar to, like, you would have to dig into the core of the fucking planet to get under that bar.
Because I actually read articles that were talking about that the, like, open world of 16 is better than the open world of 7.
What?
And I think I may agree only because 7 has Far Cry towers. Like, it's got Assassin's Creed towers. Like,
how about here's this idea. They both suck.
Far Cry 16 doesn't even have an open world. It just has a map. There's nothing in that world. It is the emptiest shit there is. Like, I don't even know how you make an argument.
That's the Rebirth open world too.
Yeah, it's
that's like, why I say they both
like,
suck. And I am trying to say how much I liked Rebirth, and I still have to go, but the open world really sucks.
Yeah, I don't like the open world part. I like the game, but I'm only 8 hours in, obviously, and I love when it's a story or like a dungeon, like it's one of those more enclosed, like it's a mine and just get to the end of it and blah blah blah. But as soon
like
as
what
I'm
it was with
world,
the first game, where it was mostly just smaller
100%.
dungeons.
Like, I think that this might be a thing where when it comes to JRPGs, we just need the open world map back, where it's literally just, it's a map to move characters around and find a town and go in and all that kind of stuff. Like making the open world like real or like more real, I guess, is nowhere near as interesting, because for me, I just want to be able to walk to the next town and then continue the story. Make the towns look cool, because towns are always different. They're unique, right? Versus just, yes, the field. I'll walk through it for so long.
I'm at the point where I'm like, can we just have cutscenes? Like, do we need to actually physically walk to everything? Like, Final Fantasy X did this right, where it's small sets of different areas where you have a higher level of enemies. You grind a little bit there along your way. There's some treasure chests. Maybe a side quest happens to be there. And then next place. There isn't, here's a place, and here's 21 random little objectives here that if you don't do any of them, you might miss something, so you make sure you do them. To which I go, okay, fine. And then I'm done, and I'm like, yay, I finished the whole thing. And it goes, congrats. And I'll go, is there anything else I'm getting out of it? Nope, just the admiration that you did it. I'm like, okay, thanks, EA. I didn't realize I was playing Battlefront 2 all of a sudden.
It's like Breath of the Wild with the Koroks poops.
Oh, yeah. I don't do the Koroks. I don't do that.
No.
So, Adam, are you saying that Final Fantasy XIII's more streamlined hallways are better than the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth?
Yes, but that's about the only good thing I'll say about it.
That and some of the music. But yeah, that's it.
Well, I mean, I guess Lightning's pretty goddamn attractive. I mean, they made a friggin' model out of her for advertising for Gucci. So you know what? I'll give them two things, okay?
You'll give them
Other than that, you're not getting much out of me on 13. So aside from that, I was trying to figure out what the next thing was. I'm now on to Persona 3 Reload because I just gave up on trying to play something else. I did try a couple of things. You'll be astonished to find out that I did try Baldur's Gate 3. And after about an hour, I went,
RPG,
nope.
Thank you.
After an hour, I went, this isn't fun without somebody else. I can't do this alone. So
there's
I dropped
JRPGs
that.
and then there's JRPGs and there's GRPGs. GRPGs are just good RPGs.
Yeah, well, Baldur's Gate doesn't fall into that category for me either, so.
Oh. Yeah, but you don't like D&D, so like it was not designed for you.
I don't dislike D&D. I just think it takes forever to get anywhere when I play with D&D, so.
Yeah, you don't like D&D then.
Yeah, it does take forever.
Fine, fair enough. I mean, I don't think the game is like, I never thought anything bad of it. I just looked at the game and said it's not hitting me with enough stuff that I feel like I'm getting much out of it. I feel like it's better if I have somebody else to play off of. So at least there's some sort of some banter within it. So I'm sure I'll try it somewhere down the road with somebody, but it just isn't the time here. I did also finish another game, like I said at the top there. I've played a game called Station to Station, which is this pretty short, chill, like train, not simulator game, but sort of like a puzzle game where basically you get a map and it starts you off with a couple of buildings and it'll say, this building produces wheat and this place needs to produce flour and it needs wheat in order to produce that flour. So you need to build stations near those two places and connect the tracks. Now, you only have a certain amount of money, and depending on how long the track is, and if it needs a bridge to get over a mountain or a lake or anything, that costs you extra. So it's the idea of trying to find the most efficient ways to basically connect everything together. And as the maps grow bigger, you'll start getting more challenges. Okay, here's a town, and it needs these 4 different things that they all need to be connected with. So you have to somehow connect, something that makes milk and something that makes cheese and something that makes fish and something that produces wheat and everything else, and try to have it all connect in either one track line, or maybe you have a track going here, a track going there, and these all converge at one point here. There's a whole bunch of different ways to do it, and then they just keep adding more and more stuff to it. but it's pretty chill. It's, you know, if you fail, it's not really like a fail state. You just reload the checkpoint and start again. It doesn't take too much of your time. Like I finished it in just over 6 hours, so it's a pretty easy game to get into and a pretty easy game to finish. Yeah, like there's nothing other special to say about that. It's again like one of those games, kind of like what Coffee Talk is, where you just turn your brain off, relax, and then just, you know, have fun just watching pixelated trains move around.
This looks
Oh yeah, and
delightful.
I never did give ratings. Rebirth is getting a 5 out of 6 if we're going by that rating.
Mhm.
And the remake got 6 last time, so they've dropped a whole point because of that. And Station to Station, I'd probably give like a 3.5. Like there's nothing special about it. It's just chill. Like there's nothing, unlike say like a Coffee Talk where I can remember a lot about it. This is a game that like a week from now I won't remember much of it. It was just a nice like bridging game for me now working on Persona 3, and we'll see how that goes.
Station to
Nice.
Station, what did you play it on? Like what,
Steam.
a console on Steam? Yep. Because it
Yeah,
looks
I can
right
never
up
imagine
my
that one
alley.
with
So
a
it's a
controller.
Steam Train game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it runs on valves.
I'm sure there's a Valve somewhere.
Nice. Yeah, actually, you guys will be proud of me. I finished a game.
What?
Yeah, I know. Mark the calendars. So I finally beat Mario Wonder. Holy crap! Honestly, I think if we were going back to 2023, I get thrown off because my work does like fiscal years and we're in 2025 there. It's a whole thing. But so if like we were back in 2023 and doing our game year, I think Mario Wonder would be my game of the year for 2023. Like it is, I'm gonna say I think it is the perfect Mario game. I think it is the best one that they've made yet. Having like, I mean, the elephant sort of power up that they did in the promotion didn't really add much to it, but like I love the game. I think having like the wonders where every single level has a remix kind of to it, super cool. I absolutely love that. And then talking about like it's neat that they got rid of the forced progression of like the level moves and you can actually go back. They've got rid of the timer, so you can theoretically explore the map as much as you want to, kind of making it almost like a quasi open world game in a weird way. Like it's not open world, but like you can explore the level any which way you want, left to right, right to left, up and down, whatever. Like it takes the Mario formula and it just changes it a little bit, but also keeps it like familiar. The controls are great. They don't have the stupid floaty thing that you had in the
Yes.
Super Mario's
Ugh.
like U. I loved it. I've beaten the main level. Story's throwaway. It's Mario. You're chasing Bowser. Whatever. Who cares?
Spoilers.
But like, but like, yeah, it's a serviceable Mario game from a story perspective. But like, you've got all the different worlds that you typically see. The one thing I found that was really funny. So like, if you haven't played the game, there's all these little flower people, whatever. And you collect these bonus coins, purple coins, which they just throw way too many at you. Like I am flush with them. And I'm running the game at like 99 lives because I just spend it all on mushrooms. But like you are in like the sketchiest, like cheapest place where they're just trying to scam you, because you'd be like, hey, you go to this part and they're like, oh man, the bridge is down. I wish I could fix it, but I'm just too thirsty. And it's like, but I'd feel better if I had some coin. Like everyone's just shaking you down, and it's hilarious when you look at it. Like they're like really bad at it, and they're just like, oh man, I don't have the tools, but if I had $100, I'd sure be able to fix it then. And you're like, here's your money. It seems like a giant grift, and I think it's hilarious when you look at it from that context.
Yeah.
I'm doing the special world now, which is like the bonus challenging levels, and some of them are kind of frustrating, but for the most part, I think if you grew up playing Super Mario World on the SNES, this is the spiritual successor, and I think it blows it out of the park. It is, I think, the best Mario game that they've ever released, hands down.
Yeah, I agree with you. For me, it really is Super Mario World 2,
Mhm.
but like in the sense that Super Mario World was like, 1991 or whatever, and this is the sequel, so it has all of that advancement of all those years.
Yeah.
And I love that you said it like felt like a Mario game. It felt familiar, but somehow just different and like upgraded. Like it's just, it's so good. It is one of my favorite games of last year for sure too.
Yeah. Other than that, the other thing I want to talk about is I got to see some shows and some movies, and I want to talk about it because I don't get a chance to talk about those kind of things. Went to go see Dune 2, fantastic movie. Absolutely loved it. If you read the books, super recommend it. The other thing I want to talk about was a TV show. Have either of you guys watched Shogun?
No, but I've wanted to.
Oh,
That's
it's
that
so
like
good.
FX show, and everybody's raving about it.
Yeah. Oh my God, I'm absolutely loving it. It just fills that. There's something so cool about like historical Japan and samurai, and this is just Game
getting
of
you all
Thrones
set
with
for Rise of
samurai.
the Ronin now, right?
That's what I was gonna lean into that. Like I told Jen, I'm like, this is just like Rise of the Ronin could not have had a better supporting marketing connection. It's like, hey, you enjoying the Shogun thing? Why don't you go be in like a samurai in Rise of the Ronin? And I'm like, it's working. It's working.
It's working. It's working.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll get
So I'm
around
gonna
to
see
it
what the
after you
reviews
finish,
are.
2 more games in the next 9 months.
Hey, I'm working on it. I have to have something besides Helldivers to make it a competition for Game of the Year for 2024. I can't let Helldivers win by default.
That is true.
But that's the most democratic way to do it.
That's what Super Earth would do. But about that, let's take a look. We're talking about some new things that are coming out. You guys are kind of in a rut. You know what's not in a rut right now? It's PlayStation 5. So there's a huge rumor going around that the PS5 Pro 1 is in development, which I think we all kind of knew. But we've got some leaks and some news about what the PS5 Pro specs are going to be. None of us are super techie people. Oh, there goes my screen wonking out. I was going to say,
you look at the specs and you're like, those are numbers.
No, don't play the VHS. It's the ring. Don't play it.
Yeah, if you're watching, just listen to the podcast. My camera color is just not enjoying me looking at another screen. But essentially what's going on, there's a bunch of specs going on. So particularly is going to be in the like one of the major upgrades is going to be in the CPU. It's going to be similar to the CPU in the PS5, but with a high CPU frequency mode. And I'm reading this off of IGN, which amounts to a 10% increase to 3.85 gigahertz, and the CPU, which enables faster rendering with higher ray tracing powered by 3.35 teraflops. The standard, yeah. And then there's going to be like improved. There's also talking. This is coming from Digital Trends. They're talking about how it's going to be having like better ray tracing. It's going to have faster rendering times. Just essentially like they're kind of talking about those kind of specs. It's going to have a detachable disc like the Slim has, or that they've talked about before. Yeah. So my question to you guys is like, are we at a point where we need to have a PS5 Pro? Do you guys feel like we're there? We're needing to have it?
Need?
Adam, you want to go first?
No. Want? We'll talk.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say need. It's weird because, like, looking back, it's not like Xbox and Sony didn't do this with PS4 and Xbox One, where we were around this point, maybe even sooner, to be honest. I can't actually remember. And it's like, oh, here's the PS4 Pro. Here's the Xbox One X. I don't know, whatever the heck their naming convention was. So it's not like it's an abnormal time or anything like that, but it definitely does feel weird upgrading a piece of tech 3.5, almost 4 years in. I guess 3.5. Like, it does feel soon to have to go and do an upgrade. Like, I'm not used to it. Like, I'm playing my Switch and that thing is like 7 and a bit years old now, and I'm still getting out of it what I mean to expect to get out of it, right? It's not like I'm like, man, this really needs. Now, obviously, that's a Nintendo thing. They've already brainwashed us that you don't need higher resolution. We give you 4K at like maybe 1080p, you're happy. And it's like, yeah, I guess I'm happy. And but with, Xbox, Sony, it's kind of like, I don't know if we need it because it does feel like it's only been 3.5 years, but want, as Adam just said, yeah, I could definitely see a want for it there, depending on what I could get out of it.
Yeah, I mean, the teraflops that are being rumored for is 33.5, which is a little under what the 3090 does for PC users. So, like, the thought of a 3090 in my hands for not $2,000 is a pretty interesting idea in my head.
Well,
so,
we haven't seen the price yet.
Okay, well, when it goes out for $1,999 Canadian, well, I guess I'm going to eat some shit, but
Yeah. It costs the same as PSVR 2. Yay!
See,
I
for
mean,
me, like
honestly, I
I'm
wouldn't
of
even be shocked
yeah,
if that's around where it is, right?
yeah, I'm thinking it's gonna be around the $800 kind of point. That's what I'd think.
It's gonna be the how much can I get for trade-in credit when I take my actual PS5 in?
I feel like a
100%.
lot of people are going to do that, and there'll be like a good trading credit at like GameStop just for a bit, and then after that, like I hope a lot of people were hoping to pick up used PS5s because like what if that inventory shifts one way too hard? That trading
Yeah.
credit
I mean, like consumers might win on that because there's gonna be like an overload of them.
Yeah.
Well, that's how I got my PS4 Pro. Is I did the trade-in at GameStop, and I think I got like $200 or $300 towards the PS4 Pro.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, like, I don't know. I don't know if this is necessary. Like, I look at the PS4 Pro, and that made sense because with that, you started getting that's when we started seeing the performance versus quality modes. That's where we started seeing HDR being a feature. Like, there was tangible benefits that you can noticeably see. I don't know if we're at a point yet where technology has advanced where I'm going to notice a huge improvement in like better ray tracing or better, rendering. Like, I don't know if that's going to necessarily be something that I see a benefit from, let alone a justification of the cost. So I don't feel like my TV has not changed. Like, I have the same TV that I had when I had the PS4 Pro. So I don't know that I'm not at a point where my TV has surpassed what my PlayStation can do. And so for me, I'm eager to see what they do and what the actual results are. But for me, like, I don't feel like a PS4 or a PS5 Pro is there. Like, I feel even like we talked about a couple weeks ago, the PS5 sort of being in its sunsetting stage or in like the latter half of its life. And I'm like, really? I feel like this console generation has barely started. And so for them to kind of come out and say, hey, we're gonna start increasing the capabilities and come out with a 5 Pro, like, I don't know. I don't feel like it's time. And similarly, we talk about developers struggling with scope and scale and cost. And I just like, is this
Yeah, let's
incurring
give them
additional
even more
costs that aren't
fidelity
needed
to
yet?
work with, so those budgets go
Right?
even higher.
Right. So that's kind of where I'm at, where I'm like, I don't know if I'm not gonna say no if one comes out on the market necessarily, but I don't know if anyone is clamoring saying, hey, we've hit the ceiling of what the PS5 can do.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
like I'm not sitting here going like I need this. I'm not even going here and saying I want it. Like the price is going to be a big determining factor. But like at the same time, as someone who's flipped between, 4K 30 frames and 1080p 60 frames, is the quality so unbelievably easy to see that, it makes a difference? No, like the frame rate's a lot more easily noticeable than it is between 4K and 1080p. So like I feel like what's happening now, and Chris, you'll probably have a good sync on this too, because you obviously were the PC guy for a long time. It feels like the console generation, at least with the PS5 Pro now being a rumor, it feels like the console companies are now starting to feel like they need to do what Nvidia and AMD are doing now, which is just constantly putting in new graphics cards every year or so to keep people buying. It almost feels like consoles are trying to do similar to what, say, phone companies do now, where they always are putting new stuff in the market as soon as possible to try to keep that money flow going. And in this case, I think now that we're getting into technology where, I mean, 4K at this point still isn't cheap. Like my monitor that I have here wasn't like super expensive, but at the same time, for the size that it is, like it's not like amazingly cheap. And for a console to be doing 4K, like it's not going to be cheap either. So like we're getting to a point now where the whole idea with console gaming was supposed to be for family. It was supposed to be a home console thing. And now it's starting to feel like consoles are slowly creeping into the more elite market in terms of like higher spending. And it is becoming a bit of a worry because the whole idea of the Series S and Series X was that it was supposed to be viable for lower income families to still be able to keep up with the new generation. And it's starting to feel like they're just not worrying about that anymore, which is a bit of a concern. But I guess the Switch kind of has that corner too, so maybe Nintendo just has another market they can keep to themselves.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I have noticed like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, like the 60 frames per second performance mode. I don't know what it is, but like the actual resolution is quite low. Like I used that for a bit and I actually noticed that. And I did notice that and I was like, what the heck is going on? Switched it to quality mode. I was like, okay, it's fine. but I've lost the 60 FPS and back to
Yeah,
30,
there are times
whatever.
in Rebirth where like it doesn't feel like it's barely even pushing 720p at times because some of the textures just look off.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I get it. I'm not a developer, and I'm sure a PS5 Pro would make that a bit easier. It's got the extra power. But the thing is like Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade exists, and that is a beautiful looking game, even today's standards, 60 frames per second. I know it has like a 4K mode. I think it's like the whole quality versus performance mode. But the performance mode, I never felt like it was somewhere between 1080p and 1440p. Like it was still great. And it probably just had it where it's like some of the foliage was turned down, or especially lighting, because it seems like everything's now about ray tracing. And it's like, I don't understand why every 3 years or 4 years now we're going to have to do this PC like upgrade to consoles, because like, why is this PS5 Pro pushing about like, oh, but this is how much more ray tracing and all of this is going to get? And it's like, what are you talking about? Like, all we wanted was a stable frame rate and like a certain resolution because it's on a TV that's pretty big. That's it. When it's like, oh, but think of all that extra ray tracing. Think of all the extra foliage in the grass. I do not notice.
That's the thing. Ray tracing has become like a buzzword now. Where like every developer thinks, oh, we need to have like a ton of lighting in this game now because everybody's talking about ray tracing because everyone sees that RTX on, RTX off meme, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I'll say right here and now, like, folks, no one cares. Like,
No, I care.
2% at most are actually like make or break on this. And I think I'm being generous. Like, again, Lethal Company is one of the most popular games right now. Is that a very high quality visual game? Fucking no.
No.
Minecraft is still a big deal today. Like, again, there's nothing wrong with the experiences, but it feels like, again, as we've talked about with open worlds being too big and other things, they're leaning so heavily on the fidelity of stuff that they're forgetting that, the game has to run good, guys.
Yeah.
And they can say, well, now we can do 60 frames, or 60 frames of 4K. I'm like, okay, but then you guys are going to do 8K now, or there's going to be this excessive amount of ray tracing, and we're going to have the same problem again, and we're going to be doing another quality mode where it's either 30 frames or it's, somehow it's like it's 60, but it's constantly capping itself and going below like 50, 45 because it can't keep up.
Yeah. I'm going to like play the devil's advocate to what you said, like nobody cares about ray tracing. Like I like the ray tracing. For me, ray tracing kind of makes it feel more real in the sense of like especially if you're playing like a game where you're playing like in an urban environment or if something in the future, like I find the ray tracing adds a depth of realism of like, oh, like that's what it would look like in real life. For me, it's the 60 frames that like I could take it or leave it. Like I see the difference, but it's one where if I had to choose between 60 frames or ray tracing, I like the ray tracing just because of that level of realism. I'm not like gonna die on that hill, but like for me, that's the one that I'm like, yeah, I see the benefits of that, and that's something that I like that they're gonna be doing it because I find that ray tracing still is not even done to its full capacity. Yeah,
I can respect that. And the thing is though, if you take Spider-Man, like Miles Morales, I know was one that did this near the beginning, like right at the beginning of the PS5's life cycle. It had like 4K 30. 1440p 60 or 1080p 60 with ray tracing, or I think the 4K 30 had ray tracing. Like it gave you the few options. It's not like a PC game where you could go whatever, but these are things you just turn on and off. And I completely agree that there are people that want 30 FPS with ray tracing or 30 FPS with 4K or whatever. And like these should just be 3 toggles. Like here, you either get 4K 30 ray tracing, 1440p 60 FPS no ray tracing. Like give the 4 or 5 options and just pre-build your settings. It wouldn't take that much because you already do these settings if the game released on PC. Like you take Persona 3, and it's obviously kind of slightly different game here, but it had trouble running on the Steam Deck, and there was all this hoopla because it has forced ray tracing. And the thing is this is a cel-shaded anime game, and the ray tracing was on like certain floors where they put this ray tracing up to like 1,000. Like here's the ray tracing, and it was forced on, and you couldn't toggle it on or off, and it struggled to run until people modded it. And as soon as they modded it, it ran perfectly beautifully, and just the ray tracing was turned off, and it's like not even an option on PC. So it's kind of like, I don't know, I feel like we're pushing all of this stuff. We're not even making it optional. and it's causing the systems to need to be updated so quick. If Final Fantasy VII Rebirth didn't have ray tracing, you could turn it off. Would it make it so that the 60 FPS mode ran at a 1080p to 1440p? Like, because I would turn ray tracing off to get that up so I could have like a 1440p 60 FPS or whatever I could get in that range. And then there are people that want the 4K 30 and the 1080p to 720p but with ray tracing 60 FPS or 30 FPS or whatever, I don't know. But the different options would be so good even on console. And like you said, Kaylan, that's what it seemed like was going to happen when PS4 Pro came out. It was like, cool, we're going to have options now, and that's really cool, and that's worth the upgrade. And PS5 kept that going, and it was like, cool, we're always going to kind of have these options. And then now it seems like the options went down a bit, and it's like, well, we may add some options in, but you're going to need a PS5 Pro if you're going to want to be able to toggle those few things on and off. And it's like, I don't want to have to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it feels in general like the industry is pushing fidelity too fast that the systems aren't keeping up with it. And again, it comes back to what we said. It's like I know some people do care about it. Like when I say no one cares, it's in the sense of obviously it's like, man, it's not that big a deal. Like the lighting is cool and all, but like, is it really going to make or break a game? No. And what's happening is that a lot of people are chasing that like RTX on like screenshot, that it's causing a lot of games to not be able to run the way that they need to be running. That's why you're seeing a lot of these videos where, you have Digital Foundry talking about how X game, can't keep a steady 30 frames or can't keep a steady 60. Like it's happening too often, especially with consoles where that's not supposed to be a problem because it's one system you're building it for. Whereas on PC, it would make sense because not everybody's using the same thing. But on a PS5, there's no way that a game should be coming out with inconsistencies in its frame rate because you're building the game for that same platform. And it's happening where companies are going too big or they're getting too overzealous with what they're building. And when by the time it's too late to change everything back, like they're just trying to like figure out what's the best middle ground so that it's not a complete dumpster fire on the screen, which obviously we've seen with Rebirth where, it's not like it looks terrible, but at the same time, there are points in the game where you look at it and be like, you were fine. Like, what the fuck happened? Like, what's going on here?
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to bring that around because we've been talking a little bit about what the specs are and what they're doing. If you, like, what are the things that you need to hear? What are the things that you want this PS5 Pro to do that'll instantly make this a one-day buy for you? We're not tech people. You don't have to go into specifics. I don't even know if it's even possible. But what would be like, if Sony came out and said it can do these three things, what would be the three things you'd want to hear in order, and you would say day one purchase?
I can go personally first. Know if there's one that would like actually make me go day one, but like have it on my radar, I think is a different story. I mean, again, 60 frame at 4K, like guaranteed is the starting point. And I don't, you're not even getting my foot in the door unless I hear that. Like that's the starting point. If anything below that is unacceptable. Especially for the price tag they're probably going to throw at it.
Okay.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with the 4K 60. Like for me, I care just stable resolution, stable frame rate. Like if you can give me that, the game that's all I need. Like a lot of the bells and whistles. They're like I love stuff in like UI stuff. I love like the software of gaming consoles because they're so unique compared to PC, which is usually just like Windows. I think it's one reason I love the Steam Deck. I actually just love the Steam OS they built for it, and I love goofing around in there. So there is stuff they could obviously do with that, but for me, it really would be the stable frame rate with like a decent resolution. But I think I agree with Adam that I don't know even if I had that it would be a day one. For it to be a day one, there would have to be bonuses. Like for me to literally go and trade in my PS5 and put myself out of a few $100 or maybe more, it would have to be like, and by the way, PS Plus is now going to be built into the Pro. If you buy a Pro, you'll get PS Plus Extra or PS Plus Premium included for the next 3 years or something. Like it would have to be some sort of a bonus for doing the upgrade versus just, hey, the what we promised with the PS5, which is stable at 60 FPS and all that kind of stuff, you can get it again. And it's like, yeah, you already tricked me once. I'll probably upgrade down the road. But if they wanted me to go to day one, it would have to be something else to go with it.
I don't think tech-wise there's anything there that can actually make me pull that trigger. It would be I'm more concerned about right now their library and the actual subscription system than I am about the console, because it's fine. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with it, because I think we're at a good point now where, we have a pretty good point in terms of our graphical fidelity and, how most games run. I think we're fine. We don't need to go any further. This is like, the next RTX, graphics card, where it's like, be a nice to have, but I don't need it. Like, that's where I'm kind of at with the Pro at this point. Like, if there's a great deal down the road, or, if there's some, really cool game that I look at and be like, man, if I could play that in 4K 60 frames, okay, maybe you'll think about it getting a PS5 Pro now. But like, as it stands, especially with a library for Sony's first party games not really releasing anything potentially in the next like 12 months, I don't think there's a thing they can announce that can make me go, yeah, I'll go get this as soon as possible. I think it's all right, if a good deal comes along and, I've got like, I don't know, maybe my tax return ends up looking pretty nice next year, maybe I'll consider it.
Well,
what about you, Kaylan?
I'll have some fun with this. I agree. 60-40, 4K 60 is like the minimum. I'm sick and tired of this whole choosing between performance and quality. I feel like that was something that was a PS4 thing, and with the fact that the PS5 still does that, to me, is kind of annoying. I feel like that was something that should have been gone. I'd also like for HDR to kind of be more streamlined. I hate when I start a game and they're like, how many nits do you want? And like, how much brightness? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm not like I don't work in VFX. I don't know. Like, just tell me what's the best that my TV can do. That's what I want. Whether that's possible or not, I don't know. Probably not. But I think there should be some sort of way that my TV can kind of communicate to PlayStation, like, hey, this is the best I can do, and then go from there. Other than that, like, I like the idea with like ray tracing and stuff being more agile. I also feel like, and I know PlayStation 5 was like, hey, there's no more loading screens. There's still loading screens. Like, let's be real. They're still
we'll
there.
See what happens with Grand Theft Auto 6 if there's a loading screen or not. That'll be the real test.
Like, well, I'm just thinking about it, like, there's still like they hide them better now, but there's still loading screens on the PS5, and like I want those gone. So we'll see.
That's a good one too.
I'm on board with it. It'll depend on price and everything, but yeah, depending on price and everything, like I'm not opposed to this, but Sony has an uphill battle to sell to me. So.
Yeah, I think so. But
also, they need some games.
Oh, and the games. Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and that's really the concern is, them saying if they actually go ahead and announce like, oh, here's the PS5 Pro coming out this holiday season, my first response when we come on the show the next time after that announcement is going to be, that's great, Sony. Where are the games for it?
Yeah. Yeah, they're going to need to have some games that are optimized, and that's the other thing too, is like there has to be an issue that are the games to be optimized, because PlayStation 5 is in a weird spot, because I feel a lot of the PlayStation 5 games were hindered by, and it's available on PS4, and now they're going to have the other thing of, now this is optimized for PlayStation 5. Like, they're never going to have a time where it's just like, hey, here are your PS5 exclusives. It was like, I think 4 of them. So. And
also, Sony, if this is a thing that's happening, can we please not have the next 6 months of PS5 Pro games being like, oh, by the way, we're re-releasing The Last of Us again with this slight optimization for it. Here's Horizon Forbidden West optimized for PS5 Pro. Guys, I don't care.
I don't need to buy another.
Give me
copy
new
of
stuff. I don't care.
I think 4 is enough.
Yeah. Though I do like what you said, Kaylan. It's one thing that would turn my head is if they got like the system was that powerful and optimized that just 4K 60 was the only option. Like, it wasn't like you had to pick and choose. You just got it like, hey, by the way, it's perfect out of the gate. I'd be like, whoa.
Yeah, that's a nice thing to have. Like, hey, a console again that doesn't make you choose. It's just like, hey, here's the best experience, and they're always going to be tailored as that.
Yeah, you don't have to go to Digital Foundry and be like, which mode do I have to choose? It's just like, hey, it just works.
Yeah.
With the asterisk that no game works on release date. But
yeah, take it easy there, Todd Howard.
Yeah. With that, yeah. Any like closing thoughts with PS5 Pro? I feel like we kind of covered all the key aspects.
I mean, look, like I've just really met that point again where I get that the console generations are usually somewhere around 6 to 7 years, so it makes kind of sense that we're getting this sooner than later. But like, again, and I'm gonna keep reiterating this, like, I don't want consoles to go in this direction where we're pushing the best possible graphics. I'm not saying we shouldn't be pushing the boundaries, but it feels like now we're not pushing the actual structure of a game. We're not how it's running. We're just looking on how it looks. And yes, visually that's going to get a lot of people in the door, but like you want to keep them in the room afterwards. So can we start focusing on the stuff that actually makes the games run well, not so much as making it look shiny? Because if I want to see something shiny, I'll go look at a Pokemon card and I can get that pretty well too.
Yeah. Yeah, if resolutions in games have to be pushed that low, below the lowest resolution TV, I'm pretty sure you can buy is 1080p. And we have games that run lower than the lowest available TV, which makes no sense. Like games on the original Xbox I guess Xbox 360 and PS3, they were 720p sometimes. That was like the norm. And we have some games now that have to dip that low to keep up, and it's like, it was 2 generations ago. That looks weird to my eyes. My TV got a lot better and shows me how bad that was. Old TVs blended it in. Yeah, like we shouldn't push that hard for like, but look how much more grass is on the screen. It's insane. It's like, I can't see the grass. It's running at 15 FPS. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, like let's look at it this way. The first 1080p TV was in 2005. It's been almost 20 years, guys. This needs to be a standard now. Like, this is ridiculous. It should minimum run at 1080p, and that's that. We're already 12 years into 4K. Like, get on with it. Stop worrying about how fucking overly fancy it looks. Just make it run first, and then we can worry about the extra stuff. Like, put the ice cream in the bowl first before you put the cherry on top.
Yeah, like look at Helldivers. Oh, sorry, Kaylan, go ahead.
I was just wrapping it up. I had the segue there. I was waiting for the segue I was going for. It's gone now. The moment's gone. Go talk about Helldivers.
I'm sorry, I ruined the podcast.
It's fine. I'll find another one.
Because it's really ruined it, but we talk about, the game that we've loved the most for the last, like, how many weeks now?
My game of the year so far.
Yeah.
Mine too.
I think mine too. Like,
well, mine is simply just by, like,
default
technicality, yeah.
Yeah. Because, like, Helldivers it's like, it looks nice, but it's not pushing crazy fidelity. Like, it looks nice when you're up close, when you're in your ship, because it doesn't take much when you're in ship, because it's a small confined space. They can make that look nice without hurting performance. And then, like, it looks nice. Like, it doesn't look awful.
It looks serviceable. Let's be honest. Like, look at those model sprites. They know.
Okay, no, not the model sprites, not the people.
Yeah, ignore your crew members on your ship. That's not the same thing.
Yeah, just don't look at them. Look at the wall. It's a beautiful wall.
Don't look at the 2 people we have on this ship.
Hey, I think a third shows up.
Also, don't look at the window too, because that also kind of looks a little basic too.
But it's not a full price game. It's not quadruple A, Kaylan. Give it a rest.
Yeah. But
I'm just saying, if you're going to start going on the hill of, like, look how great Helldiver, I'm like, no, I'll call you out.
It does look great.
It has a style, but it does not look great.
Well, it has its style, and it's a cheaper live service game. Usually the things that people would look at and go, not even one of those 3 things excites me. And it's our game of the year because it runs well when the servers worked, but they fixed it. When it runs well, and it's just fun. Like, gameplay... It looks serviceable. Like, it looks nice enough to play. At no point are you like, wow, this looks jagged and 720p. No, it actually looks like
we're not sitting there being like Digital Foundry is going to be talking about how it's like the greatestly optimized game ever in history and you should all play it just because it looks good. No, it looks fine and it gives you all the responses you need. Like, every time an enemy takes damage, you visually can tell what's going on. Whereas so many games now, it's like, look how pretty this is. Also, nothing else happens. Like, you can't tell if something's actually been touched or not.
No, it's running at 15 frames per second, so it looks great when you're standing still, and then you move, and everything's a blurry mess, and you can't tell what's happening. I don't know.
But look how great that water looks.
Yes.
The thing that you might not be staring at ever in the game. Unless you're taking screenshots.
Helldivers, you got to stay away from the water. You drown. Yeah. They're purposely like, don't look at the fidelity of the water. You'll die. Literally.
Anyways, that'll be our show. I don't have a nice segue because that moment's gone. But ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna wrap it up for us this week. If you like that, you can always find more episodes of the Pixel Play Podcast on youtube.com/PixelPlay Podcast or wherever you get your podcasts on the interwebs. If you want to be part of the show, if you want to talk to Adam about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, you can find us on Discord. You can find all that information at linktr.ee/pixelplaypodcast. We also have Instagram, X, whatever, all that kind of fun stuff. And yeah, we'd love for you to be part of the community. And with that, we'll see you guys all next week. Bye for now.